Well, good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure for us and an honor for us to be here to talk with you about Unit 2 and share what you've learned over this year. We'd like to introduce ourselves first and then have you introduce yourself. Okay? Madeline?
I'm Madeline Dunn, and I'm an historian with Delaware's Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs.
I'm Andy Leedy. I'm a trial lawyer in Baltimore, and I teach at the University of Maryland School of Law.
I'm John Kaminsky, Director of the Center for the Study of the American Constitution at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Johnson, and I will be attending Rhodes College in the fall, majoring in political science.
Hi, I'm Brittany Sink. I will be attending the University of Georgia in the fall and majoring in business.
I'm Rachel Connery. I plan to attend Vanderbilt University, where I'll double major in secondary education and history. These are our teachers, Mrs. Amy Maddox and Mrs. Jane Schaefer. We're seniors representing Vestavia Hills High School, and we're really excited to be here this morning.
Okay. Surprise. Question number 2. Last class we didn't even have to give the question. One of the students started right away. But here's the question so that everybody else can hear it. Although posterity has tended to emphasize the work of the Constitution's framers in the Federal Convention of 1787, the ratification of the U.S. Constitution in 1787-1788 was a landmark in the history of government. What evidence can you offer to support or dispute this claim? In what ways, if any, was the plan for ratification an example of social contract theory? And finally, what precedents were established by the ratification process, and why have they continued to be important?
Thank you. May we begin?
Yes.
219 to 212.
The recent healthcare vote in the House of Representatives stood after hours of endless debate. In March, Americans nervously watched CNN, and 2 centuries ago, Americans anxiously awaited news of the Constitution's ratification.
We agree that the ratification process was as essential a landmark in the history of government as was the innovative government proposed for the United States.
The ratification conventions exemplify the ideas of the social contract. Citizens relinquish some sovereignty in order to be better protected by the new government. The social contract requires the legitimate authority be derived from the consent of the governed, and the citizenry of the states provided that consent.
James Madison asserted that the people must approve the proposed Constitution, stating, "The difference between a system founded on the legislatures only and one founded on the people is the true difference between a league or treaty and a constitution." The proposed Constitution opened with "we the people" and greatly limited state power. Thus, the framers knew that relying on state legislatures to ratify would likely fail.
Yet, popular ratification was largely unfamiliar. Only Massachusetts and New Hampshire had brought state constitutions to the people for a vote. When discussing how many state ratifications were necessary, Pierce Butler argued against a simple majority when he proclaimed that he revolted at the idea that 1 or 2 states would restrain the others from consulting their safety. A unanimous vote was also impractical. Rhode Island was not even present at the convention. If a supermajority of 9 states ratified, as stipulated by Article 7, it would be an incentive for the other states to follow.
Following the unanimous votes of Delaware, New Jersey, Georgia, and the easy votes of 5 other states, New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify on June 21st of 1788. However, the decisions of Virginia and New York were still crucial to this experiment. The fierce debates between Federalists and Anti-Federalists were most prominent in these states.
In Virginia, Edmund Randolph, who had refused to sign the Constitution, suddenly changed his mind. He urgently argued that Virginia needed to ratify in order to avoid military and commercial risks. Ultimately, Virginia ratified by a vote of 89 to 79.
The struggle in New York was more difficult. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay wrote the Federalist Papers to counter Anti-Federalists Brutus and Cato. Melancton Smith, one of New York's Anti-Federalist leaders, finally said, "Better to work within the system than outside the system." He voted to ratify, and many agreed, resulting in a vote of 30 to 27.
Ratification of the Constitution established countless precedents. First, the expansion of democracy was rooted in the elimination of property qualifications. Several states waived standard voting restrictions to allow a broader class of citizens to vote for ratification convention delegates. Pennsylvania expanded the electorate by as much as 50%. These restrictions were not implemented again, and democracy continued to expand.
Second, the new federal system redefined the old state-centered approach. Many governors called for rewrites of state constitutions, with Pennsylvania having the most dramatic transformation. 7 more states adopted new constitutions after 1788, and these new state governments greatly resembled the federal constitution.
Third, the supermajority vote required by Article 7 would be reflected in the Senate rules, in which a supermajority would be required for particularly controversial pieces of legislation.
Finally, the ratification debates brought the Bill of Rights. Madison claimed is an important part of the democratic process to seek unity if possible, so I'm bringing the Bill of Rights to you. In 1791, the Bill of Rights was ratified by the states.
The framers implemented the basic ideals of social contract and set precedent for the reign of popular sovereignty and the expansion of democracy. With the late ratifications of North Carolina and Rhode Island, 13 sovereign states had united under the Constitution. As James Wilson explained, the Constitution is laid before the citizens of the United States. By their fiat, it will become of value and authority. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
You talked about the philosophical reasons for going to conventions. What were some of the practical political reasons for going to conventions rather than state legislatures?
Well, the framers understood that if they went to the state legislatures, powerful figures such as George Clinton in New York would automatically oppose this new constitution that greatly limited state power. And so they wanted to try, because James Madison said in Federalist 39 that a true Republican government is one which derives all of its power either directly or indirectly from the great body of the people. So you understood here that if the people did not legitimize this new government, then the Constitution would ultimately fail.
When we look to the Articles of Confederation in which the 13 states had consented to enter into this agreement, it was a strong league of friendship. It functioned much as a treaty between 13 sovereign states. Without the consent of the people, it wouldn't do any more than that. You had 13 sovereign state governments. It took a popular ratification to give legitimacy to a constitution for the people rather than a treaty between 13 states.